So everybody, anybody else want to get on the line, because it's the last call here. Okay. Oh, okay, Fiona. So once Fiona gets up there, that's it. Thanks.
Mark Tinker, CCOM. I support the policy in its current form. I'd like to add that maybe there be some text or some kind of corresponding allocation policy to ensure that exchange points get sufficient address space. We've been involved in renumbering of large exchange points around the world, and that's not pretty. I know exchange points tend to start off modestly and hope to grow, which they end up doing, and that can be painful in the future. So if we can think of that as part of this or some kind of sister policy, that would be good.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrew Alston here. 2 points, one of which was just raised by one of our colleagues with me in RIPE. That is a minor point of concern that I do think needs to be looked into, is that because the ASN pools within AFRINIC are evaluated by IANA as a combined pool, if we reserve too many ASNs, there is a risk that we may not be able to get more ASNs. I don't know what those reservation levels are, etc. I know very little about that process, and I'll state so openly, but it is something I'd like responded to. On the second point, I'd like to respond to what Elaine said earlier, and I'm trying to understand exactly what he said, so if I've got it wrong in what I say, Elaine, please correct me. Elaine, you referred to a conversion process that happens from 2-byte ASNs when speaking to a 4-byte ASN. I have just gone through RFC 4893, and RFC 4893, which is the RFC written in May 2007, which defines 32-bit ASNs, does not in any way, shape, or form refer to a conversion like that. What it says is that when you talk a 2-byte to a 4-byte, the 2-byte is encoded in the first 4 bytes. That is not a conversion. That still leaves the rest of the space available. That's my reading of it. And I'm telling you what the RFC says. If I have misunderstood your concerns, I apologize, but I'm quite happy to sit with you offline outside of this meeting and debate the RFC, and I think it would be a very interesting debate, so I would welcome it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Moi, c'est Grégoire Eoumi.
My name is Grégoire from Benin Telecom, Benin. I believe also that we consult the 2 bytes. It becomes a very rare resource. For technical problems, if we already by saying no, we have to start by using them. Then we could have other policies afterwards which say that we can use them. It's not to solve this. My second question concerns the standardization to the addresses at the exchange point. What happens to the old exchange points which already exist? Do we have to recuperate the old ones, or leave them and give additional ones, give additional addresses? Thank you.
Thanks, Grégoire. That is at the discretion of the exchange point operator. This policy does not tell exchange point operators how to run exchange points. If they want to change their addresses, they're at liberty to do that. If they don't want to, they can continue doing what they'd like to. This policy doesn't address that.
Can I?
Yes, you can.
Okay, this is Alain again. I think I agree with Andrew that we need, if you remember, first time I came to the mic, I said we need to have some technical discussion. And the policy, we have a policy working group. So I think we set it to working group because we knew that some of the things need to be worked on technically speaking. So I agree. So then to Andrew, the RFC you point to has just been obstructed by a new RFC, so please check that one. Now, on a different point, let me talk about a different point. Different point is the 4-byte ASN. We must all agree that the 4-byte ASN, we have a problem with the 4-byte ASN, okay? And that concerns the community, in terms of BGP community, okay? So if you have 4-byte ASN and you want to use standard community, which is 32-bit, you are in trouble. So we know it's a general problem. So why are we taking this as exchange point problem? Because the ISPs also have this kind of problem, because if you have 4-byte ASN and you want to use standard community, you are in trouble. You cannot do that. So it's a general problem. It's a general problem. It's not only for the exchange point.
So, Alain, to address your concern about it being a general problem, it is trivial for simple networks to agree on a process to use between themselves. ISPs do this all the time. And here's an example. When an ISP does a network interconnection, what we'd call an NNI today, there's a simple agreement on who does what. Amongst other things that they agree on, mapping tables for VLANs and all of that. So it's simple to do this on a one-on-one relationship. It's considerably more difficult to do this on a one-to-N type relationship. And that's specifically the problem we want to avoid. Again, not for exchange point operators that are necessarily doing this now, but for the guys that want to get things up and running with the least amount of effort possible, who don't have the resources necessarily to spend lots of time doing these kinds of things. So we're talking about best practice building.
Yes, but my understanding is that it's much easier for the exchange point because we have a community, we have some practices to collaborate more than people upstream and downstream, etc. For me, it's much easier for the exchange point to agree.
I think we have different experiences there, Alan.
Dr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I made my general comment already. I'm going to make comment on the ASN and also on the size 23/23 that you are requesting. On the ASN, my understanding is that we run only a 4-byte registry. So hearing anything outside of that is a little difficult for me. Okay, because that, I mean, the document says that. So since January 2010, we have only 4-byte registry. So we don't have any 2-byte ASN. If I have read it wrongly or there's some new document, then I will like to learn about it. The second one is, I think, on the IPv, I think you are requesting /23 or something like that. I mean, I want to know what is the history of the sizes of exchange points, backing up the nature of the request. Because it may well be that what you are looking for may be too much. Because I don't know what size of exchange points are, and so on and so forth. So that too, if you share, it might help me make up my mind on the policy. Though, like I said, I'm sympathetic to it, but I'm also sympathetic to several other critical groups.
Okay. The first part of this, rather the second part of it, what we're asking, what exchanges typically use at their peering networks as /24s, because historically that has been what internet exchange point operate, the smallest or the longest match in terms of network prefix that RIRs were going to make available. So pretty much if you're starting an internet exchange point up today, you'll write to an RIR, AFRINIC in this case, and they'll allocate you a /24 for your peering LAN. What we're doing is we're not changing that. We're not asking for that to be changed. We're asking that allocations in the reserve pool, if a reserve pool is set aside, be done in some sort of sparse mode, and there was discussion on the list by David on why that's a good thing. So that part, at least, as I said, we're not changing the rules that AFRINIC uses for allocating address space to internet exchange points. The second network that an exchange point needs is to be able to provide critical services to the exchange point. One of the things that we need in order to grow the internet environment in Africa is the availability of other critical services like internet exchange points. To do that, the exchange points need to have some sort of IP transits. They need to have some sort of routability capability at the internet exchange points. And the longest match prefix that you can do that with reliably on the internet today is a /24. Operators will not pick anything else up. So, you know, there's the operator world which says this is what we're willing to support, and we have to play by those rules as well. Again, we're not changing the rules for how AFRINIC is doing things. That's up to them. The first part of the question, do we have 2-byte and 4-byte ASNs? You're absolutely correct. By default, I believe AFRINIC will correct me. They do 4-byte ASN allocations. However, they still do 2-byte AS allocations. I have gotten 2-byte AS allocations for my internet exchange point. I can see people in the room that I know have gotten 2 byte allocations, so they do have a pool of 2 byte allocations. What we're asking for is to recognize that there is a unique problem that requires this and to make reservation of these resources for that.
I would just, and I think there was also a question about the need for a /16. Okay, for the IPv4. Never mind. Okay, next.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My name is Kevin from ISOC. First of all, I support the policy as it is. I think it's very well put that it's specific to IXPs. IXPs are a key infrastructure for internet in Africa, so I think this will go a long way in growing the IXPs that are coming up. I'd just like to respond to some of the comments that having this policy in might attract other infrastructure networks like NRENs. I think in particular for NRENs, I'll comment because I used to work for an NREN and I worked and built an NREN for a long time. It is highly unlikely that an NREN would come and apply to have such a policy because an NREN is just an ISP. And a /16 will never work for an NREN anyway. So it's highly unlikely that it would come and do this. So just say I think I like it and good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah, Mukam Taman, despite my physical hat, I wear no hats. I'm not here to support or not support the policy, but there are certain concerns that have been raised that this might be the premise upon which other groups come and start reserving blocks of addresses. And then we could potentially end up in a situation where there's lots of reservations done that are not being used. Well, in as much as I understand that the IX community should not take the responsibility of writing one proposal for all of the possible unknown other entities out there, would it be unreasonable to ask that you put a provision, a clause in this policy saying that since we cannot accurately predict the future, if by a certain time this reserved space is not being used, this policy should become null and void. That way, that concern of lots of reservations that end up not getting used would be solved. Thank you.
Mukam, sorry. Before you leave, if I hear you correct, you'd like us to add if reserved by, I don't know, 2020.
A provision to essentially make sure that if it is not being used, this policy becomes not null and void, and then that pool that has been reserved goes back.
So we'd be happy with something like that. We'd love for you to submit some text, and we can easily add that into the policy. Yeah, I'll talk to you outside.
Fiona Songa again, from the Kenya Internet Exchange Point. I think we need to, when we're arguing that the policy should be able to incorporate all other entities, the NRENs, the CCTLDs, the government special projects, let us also go back and look at our definition for critical infrastructure. When we're defining critical infrastructure, I don't think we listed any government projects and programs. I think it was very specific what the critical infrastructure for our region is. I would encourage, so far we've heard from the NRENs that they're not likely to face our kind of problem, which is clear and understandable. CCTLDs, I'm not so sure. I've not run one, I don't have experience there, but for the exchange points, well, it is an issue of concern. An issue of concern, why? Because it does affect our operations. It does affect our ability to serve the business community, the ISPs, the telcos, the guys who want to make use of that exchange point switching fabric. So if we are not in support, we are likely to find ourselves in a situation where we will be sitting back a couple of years from now, because already there's precedents and some exchange points have received this service already. Staff have come here and have confirmed that yes, they are allocating us what we need from two pools. What we are going through is really a process of formalizing the actions that staff have listened to our communication, our plea, and have implemented. We're really formalizing something that has already been done. So then my only maybe change will be that we because the 2x are only 100, would then be okay with at least one per country, so that in that country, even if there are 2 or 3 exchange points being run by different operators, they would see a way of how to route that, to use that SN if, and at a time in the future when, as per the Axis project, if we can allow ourselves to think in that direction, the exchange points on the continent are going to be connected. We have to look in the long term and look in the interest of being able to ensure that every country has an exchange point that can comfortably address the needs, not just of that country, but keep the traffic and interconnect with other regional exchanges and be able to achieve what we want to achieve as a region. So my proposal is I'm sure, Michelle, we can be comfortable with at least a less number because there are only 100 2-byte SNs available. We'd need to sit and maybe discuss and agree on that because the pool is smaller than we are able to share out.
Sorry, can I just correct you? When we started this, I asked how many 2-byte ASNs were allocated. We asked the AFRINIC staff, and at the time there were over 200. And it would be very, very interesting to me if in the, 6, 7 odd weeks that we've had this text in place, if they have allocated more than 100 2-byte ASNs, especially as this is not the default. So staff can quickly look it up and tell us again, but I have the notes from them saying they have well over 200 available.
Well, on the presentation it showed there are 100 available, which means then that is an indication that the 2-byte SNs are being distributed by AFRINIC, and the more reason then we need to have a reservation.
Sorry, again a clarification. The text, if it's not clear on the slides, because I didn't do the slides, asks for reservation of 114. That's 57, one per country times 2. Yeah. There are, and they'll correct me, I guess they're looking it up now, at least over 200 of those available. So even the reserved pool is less than half of what we're asking for.
Okay, fine. And I think I still, again, support the proposal as is in that case.
Fiona was the last person on the line, guys. I'm sorry. But, well, I'm sure he'll talk, but I don't know what the, it doesn't seem that there's a lot of consensus, and I'd like to draw us towards consensus. Okay, you can do, yeah.
I simply, saying this, I still support this policy. I simply need to eat humble pie. Elaine, you were correct in, where is Elaine? Elaine, you were correct that the RFC I cited has been superseded. And there is indeed language in 6793 which did supersede the RFC that I previously cited that seems to indicate what you are saying. I'd still like to have the debate with you about exactly what that language means, but I do need to eat humble pie and say that I cited an old RFC and I apologize, so this is me eating humble pie.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We'll let these two, and then we'll finish up.
Can you give me 10 seconds?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to make clear, Daniel Karrenberg here from RIPE NCC, when you edit the proposal to say how big the reservation should be, please make sure that you take into account the global policy for distribution of AS numbers, because if you reserve too much, you cannot get any more. And at the moment, the policy, if I just read it very briefly, says that you have to you get new IS numbers only if you are below 2 months usage or below 80%. And if you reserve 114 out of 1024, you're quite close to that. So I'm not saying one way or the other, but be aware that when you reserve stuff, the global policy says you still have stuff.
Noted.
Thank you, Chair. I know you drew the line, but I just wanted to crave your indulgence. I'm not trying to use my position. I wanted to ask if it's okay to just make a comment.
It's more than okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really don't want to comment about the policy. I want to comment about the process. And I want to say it's very heartwarming to see our community debating, using very nice technical terms, engaging themselves, arguing, and finally agreeing that this is really what's correct. And I'm also impressed by the types of civil words that have been used in arguments, and I hope it will encourage many more members of the community to get up, be bold, be courageous. There's really nothing wrong in being wrong. What is right is that this community makes progress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't have so much more time, so the schedule for the next couple of minutes here is that Nishal is going to talk quickly about the changes he feels like were brought up that need to be made. And then I'd still like to get some sort of show of hands around consensus quickly, and then we can move on.
Thanks, Adam. So the notes that I've been making, and please correct me if I've missed anybody. Douglas, you wanted some cleaner text about the problem that is being solved, and I'll catch you outside. I think we discussed the issue about whether or not there is a reservation for exchange points in the end-user policy. There isn't. It's just demarcated, as Fiona pointed out, as critical infrastructure. Again, we are not interested in redefining critical infrastructure. This policy does not do that. You did that in end-user IP, and, well, we're dealing with it from there. Mark would like to have text to show notes on growing internet exchange points, so sparse mode type allocations. Mark, we're happy to incorporate that. That was a suggestion on the list, so that's something we will take notice of. Mukam to add text to say, if not used by date, and again, if he's still in the room, I'll catch you outside to get exactly what you mean. So those are the edits that I'm happy with. The edits that I'm not happy with, and I'll discuss this with my co-authors, are the idea that this should be a all-encompassing policy for NREN's government exchange projects. I can personally tell you as an individual that's not something I would support. I don't operate those. I don't see myself as being competent enough to comment on what another organization should do. And as I said, you, the community in Djibouti, said, please don't make policy about something you don't operate. So I operate exchanges, and my gut feel is that this is going to stick to internet exchange points. Though if you believe that you would like to do something similar and you need my assistance, I'm happy to assist. If I missed out somebody that had edits, please, that was unintentional. It's probably because I didn't have enough coffee, and I'd love to talk to you outside the room. So those are the things that I'd be interested in editing.
Okay, just to understand what's going on in the room, I'm just going to ask two questions. The first question is going to be if people in general support this policy with the revisions that Nishal made and without the revisions that he did not want to make. And then I'll ask if anybody is against the proposal. So by a show of hands, who is interested and supportive of this proposal with modifications? Okay. And who is against the proposal? Okay. Thank you very much. So there's no consensus, and we'll move forward. On to the next. Well,
so I think Adam has done justice to that. We'll now move to the next. Perhaps it looks like, do I need to repeat what he said? Okay, so based on the discussions, there's obvious indications that there's some further development that needs to be done on the current proposal by Nishal. And in view of this, we, the co-chairs, have determined that there's no consensus to take this policy proposal to the next level in PDP. So in view of this, we are actually taking this back to the mailing list for further discussion. Adam, sorry. Did I just say Adam? Andrew, you have something?
I appeal that decision because I looked at the numbers, and I'm sorry, but I appeal that decision.
Okay, Andrew, I'm sure you have been kind of involved in this within this community for quite some time, and you understand the process. If you kind of think we've not made the right decision, please, you may want to follow the PDP in appealing the decision we've made. However, please also, while you're appealing, bear in mind that consensus is not entirely by number. It's actually also based on points that have been made. Thank you.
And I would, and I would just note that some people might have been looking this way, but basically a large chunk of people in the back row, just for the transcript, were not in favor of the proposal.
All right. Okay. Charles, you may go now. Oh, you're unclear about what? Yeah, the next step is that the policy proposer is automatically back to the mailing list. You can even start from now to start discussing about it. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're going to head to the last policy. We actually took the entire time for this session discussing just one policy. So we're going to stay here for a while. I hope we all know that. But let's hope that this last one is going to be fast. So there is the policy proposal about AFRINIC service guidelines. I would like to call on Kaman Olumomo. Kaman Olumomo should kind of come over to present his or our policy. Yeah. Thank you. So basically, this proposal intends to improve overall service quality and transparency of AFRINIC number resources. Oh, I think Kaman should do this herself. Okay, Kaman, up to you. Over to you, rather.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody is still up. Okay, my name is Kaman Olumomo. I was born in Nigeria. After graduate, I have joined few years in internet industry. I would like to take this opportunity to address some issues that some AFRINIC members are facing. Some AFRINIC members are facing extremely long wait for their request to be approved, and at the same time, they are also being requested to provide non-technical information, which I don't think it is necessary, such as customer data, marketing channel, and marketing budgets. In order to approve this overall service quality and transparency of the number resource services, in my humble opinion, we should set a policy to document roles and responsibility. Therefore, I have come with following proposal. Number one, setting time limit for AFRINIC to approve a new allocation request by its member. The decision-making time should be cut short and no longer than 20% of the 12-month period, which means within 3 months' time. In other cases, if AFRINIC is not able to reach decision within the time period, the requesting member should receive percentage offered by request of the period. This to ensure the member can run smooth with their business. And also, the waiting time should be reasonable. Number two, publishing standardized information for each typical type of resource allocation request. A clear standardized information would help members to know what is required, and in this case, member could be sure it is fair distribution. Number three is AFRINIC should not request non-technical information to its members, such as customer data, marketing channel, and marketing budget. Above all, this information is supposed to be very sensitive. So leaking information will not do any good between member and customer. Number 4, AFRINIC should make allocation decisions solely based on the current policy. No other factor other than policy should influence AFRINIC decision. Number 5, unless AFRINIC decision approved, the decision-making board should not be directly involved in IP allocation. For the Internet of overall policy development process, other IRR staff as well as its governing body personnel, advisor or board member, for example, should not be involved in the AFRINIC policy development process. Because if the other IRR are from up, it shouldn't involve and affect the bottom. The purpose for putting IRR is to meet each community. So each community should have their own policy and they should be independent on their own policy. On the other hand, the point to set up IRR is to meet their local community needs. If other IRR interface other local community, then basically they will break the principle of the IRR system. Last one, bear with me please. AFRINIC policy making group chair election should be conducted independent from AFRINIC board, nomination committee. Candidate should be free of any requirement. I strongly believe this because this adjustment will be very benefit to the new generation of AFRINIC community member. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Komoru, right?
Carmen Alumomo.
Kaman Al-On. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. We've just heard. I think I should quickly go through what we saw on the RPD list. We had very little support on the RPD list. Most commenters said that this may not be a policy issue. There were quite a number of comments referring to how much information can be requested from an applicant. This is one of the comments, and please take notes. It doesn't mean that we do not take notice of other comments. We just picked a few, and this is actually copy and paste. We did not actually paraphrase in any way. So it says in ARIN there's an explicit word between board and the resource allocation, blah, blah, blah. You can read all that so we don't waste our time. Staff analysis, staff did not have sufficient time to conduct analysis, assessment of this particular proposal, and they mentioned that they can do this after the meeting if necessary, or rather I would say if required. Discussion points. These are just 3 things that we just listed. We showed that there may definitely be other points that you would like to raise, and in view of this, I hereby open the floor for comments or questions. Thank you.
I am not speaking for AFRINIC. I'm speaking as someone who has been part of this process for more than 5 years, and this certainly isn't something that should be approached through policy. Now, the very first objection I will make is to say, put a time limit. It's not reasonable to say simply because a certain amount of time has passed, and if a requirement, the resources should be given, even if the requirements have not been met. It is rather much more reasonable to say it should be based on requirements. In order to get this, these are certain requirements that people need to submit. Now, until those requirements are met, the request should not be accepted. What I think that could better solve this problem is for the community to have a conversation about, for each general type of category of request, what specific kind of documentation is required to back it up. I mean, most of us have done probably university admissions or visas, and we see that for each particular requirement, they say the primary justification for this is this kind of document. Lacking that, two of these other ones, I think that would be acceptable, but however, not as part of a policy proposal. And I think those are things, the community could have a conversation about that, which the staff on their discretion could take into an internal policy, an internal process that could be discussed at probably an AGM. I really don't think this is a policy that addresses anything, and even if it's going to be a policy, I absolutely will not say that the time limit is a basis for accepting the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamon. Alan, please take note of the comments in case you have response. I will call on you very soon. Kamal.
Hello, Alan Barrett. I have a comment on almost every sentence in this document, but I'll try to keep it short. Yes, AFRINIC should make decisions based on policy, but I don't think it's appropriate to tie the staff's hands with time limits, and I especially don't think it's appropriate to automatically give out some percentage of the request if the time limit is exceeded. I think the staff should take as long as they need to verify whatever information they feel they need to verify to answer a request. Yes, in 3.2, it's probably a good idea for AFRINIC to publish the information that they're likely to request, but I also don't want to tie their hands and prevent them from requesting more than that if they feel it's necessary. Also, I don't think the policy process is the right way to make this kind of guideline to the staff. 3.3, I think AFRINIC should be able to request anything that they want, like marketing, business-related, technical, non-technical, anything that they feel they need to verify the authenticity or the need for the space that's applied for. In 3.4, yes, allocations should only be made on policy. I agree with that one. 3.5, the board should not be directly involved. I agree with that one. 3.6, other RIR staff, etc., or board members should not be involved in policy development. I disagree with that. I think it very often happens that someone from another RIR comes up to this microphone during the policy development process and makes a useful comment. I do not want to prevent them from doing that. 3.7, I don't really understand what it means to say the candidate should be free of any requirement. I think the candidate should have a requirement to be involved in the community, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan, before you go, thank you. Just to be clear about your stand, you're saying that you support the policy if it is rewritten, or you don't support the policy because there are some sections that you're saying you agree with this, you agree with this. I need to be sure of what.
I am thoroughly opposed to this policy.
Okay.
There are one or two sentences which make some sense, but they should not go through the policy process.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Kallenberg, RIPE NCC. I'm not going to say whether I am in favor or not in favor of this policy. I just want to tell an anecdote from the times when I was still a host master or resource analyst. I don't know how you call them, the people who look at the requests. There was one relatively big ISP who complained very loudly about the fact that it took too long. And it always took too long. That was, of course, embarrassing for us. But the real reason for it was that the information that was actually required in the form was not there. So what took long was not that we responded to the form, and because we responded like, this information is missing, and then it took them a good long time to respond to that, and then they came back and something again still was missing, so we responded relatively quickly. You know, you haven't filled this box, and the whole process could take quite a long time. Now, if we had a policy that says, if it has taken so long, the total process, then of course it would be very easy for them to get address, for such a customer to get address space, because the only thing they would need to do was take a long time. So my point is, as it is written, this can be gained, and you shouldn't have something that could be gained. What happened at the time at the RIPE NCC is that the community also asked us, of course, because these people were complaining it took such a long time, to publish statistics about how long it takes, and we started doing statistics along how long we took to respond, rather than how long the whole process takes, which we also did. Just keep that in mind.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that information. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sander Stefan, private person. I just want to make a comment on how dangerous point 3.6 is on excluding advice from other RARs, but I think Daniel just made that point.
Thank you very much.
By giving good advice.
Thank you for maximizing our time. Thank you. Andrew?
Hi, Andrew.
Go ahead, please.
Andrew Alston here. Firstly, I need to say that I am thoroughly opposed to this policy. I want to draw attention to point 3.6, and I want to highlight a concern of mine. We, as AFRINIC, elect our board members from this community. This would say that anybody from this community who actively participates in this process would have to leave that behind in the event of getting elected to the board. I personally believe that we need strong candidates for the board and that we need strong people proposing policy. I also believe that many people wear many hats. This clause, in my opinion, would ensure that anybody who had a strong voice on the floor in the PDP and had an interest in it may not run for board, and I think that would weaken the organization substantially. I also think that, as I say, many people in this room wear many hats. I can refer to many people who are directors on multiple organizations. I do not believe that that restriction exists anywhere else, and I find that clause to be, I'm looking for diplomatic words to say how opposed I am to that clause.
Yeah.
And since
actually,
I cannot find them, I'm going
without
to
you
sit
saying
down.
it, we know what you mean. Thank you. Please, I'm going to ask that if what you intend to say has been said, a +1 will be very useful. Please, you don't need to repeat what has been said because we've actually spent a lot of time, and I think some people are flying out today. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jacques Mumbo. I'm not very fan of +1 or -1, but I'm not going to say something that has been said before. The way this, the wording of this proposal, from the wording of the proposal, it seems to me that it's a kind of experience, bad experience from a member complaining for something. If that is the case, maybe that member needs to go to a kind of dispute resolution mechanism. I was not able to find the correct references to that dispute mechanism, that dispute resolution mechanism. It means that we need to be very clear on it. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. Before Sunday speak, may I ask if Kamal has comment on all what has been said so far? Can we continue, or you have comments?
Yeah. For customer data, we believe it's not relevant for technical needs. So if a member needs 100 of IP addresses, that is technical need. So we should assign it to them.
Okay. Thank you, Command. By the we, I presume you meant your organization, right? Yeah, you said by the we, do you mean we as in AFRINIC or we as in your organization? My co-chair just asked me to ask that, so that's why I'm asking.
Organization or member?
Okay, okay, we members, okay. All right, Sunday, please go ahead.
Thank you. I want to just speak. Sorry, I may not be able to do +1, but I'm wearing my board hat, and I want to take two or three of the items in the proposal. 3.4. What this proposal reads to me looks like something I saw in my country once. Somebody put up for an election to run for an office, died 1 week before the election, and still won the election with overwhelming majority. They still proceeded to swear him into office as a senator, a dead senator. I think if it is very obvious we know, we should be able to say this is no-brainer and not say because the policy said so, therefore we would install a dead man into office. That's my comment on 3.4. 3.5, the board does not look forward to an appeal. When I came to talk about finance, you asked me to go solve my problem. Community, you also fix your problem. 3.6, it's been said it will be too dangerous to ignore knowledge and competence because we want to be an island. Let us open up. Let everybody come. Let everybody say, we know when to choose what is right, and we know when to throw what is wrong out of the window. I think I would stop with those three. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunday. And just a point of correction. I'm not only expecting +1, I'm just trying to say let's be as short as possible to maximize our time. Thank you. Mark, please.
Mark Elkins, citizen of AFRINIC, I guess you can say, community. I'm very much against this policy, and I would do a +1 behind Alan Barrett on this.
Thank you, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Paul Chen, MEA Region Vice President for China Com Service. I believe this policy greatly improve the overall service quality of AFRINIC and make companies like us feel more confident in dealing with AFRINIC to have our business limited number resources in a predictable order, in which would greatly benefit future development of Africa Internet. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark Tinker-Seacom. I do not support this policy in any way or form. I think performance issues about AFRINIC staff must be addressed in the right operational forum, either within AFRINIC or in some other venue. At any rate, even if the policy made it through, right, so AFRINIC then make your life difficult and you say, fine, here's the policy, they'll probably have something back to you anyway. It doesn't guarantee that you'll get the response you'll get, so I don't support the policy.
Thank you. Fiona.
Fiona Sanga, Kenya Internet Exchange Point. I would like to say that as a community, we need to be very clear on what our operational issues are that need administrative and operational changes by staff, and what are the policy issues that govern how we manage the resources. A lot of what you've put into the policy are issues that are really operational. From my understanding of everything you have raised, they are not issues that would come to the floor for a policy discussion. They have to do with how staff work. Staff sign KPIs on how they engage. They are checked. There are checks and balances to see how staff is performing. issues that have to do with how the staff is performing cannot be addressed with a policy. They are addressed differently. And that is why we have structures in place to guide that process. We have a CEO, we have a board of directors. Those are the people who are ultimately responsible to facilitate, to oversee the operations of staff. However, as a region, we need to be very clear that we are probably missing a dispute resolution mechanism. And so we should be looking at a dispute resolution mechanism so that when a member has had a bad experience, it is very clear on how that gets resolved. But this policy is not going to give us that. So I do not support the policy.
Thank you, Fiona. Next Sunday.
I just want to say that...
Sorry, Sunday. I haven't asked you to... By the way...
You called Sunday.
Yeah, I'm saying Sunday. I'm wondering how you got to the front.
I apologize.
Yeah, please, can you queue behind Leo? Yeah, next person. Thank you.
Rasbirama, IP9 Gabon.
I don't have to be for or against this policy. I just would like to talk about 2 points. One, just witnessing concerning 3.1 to corroborate everything that my friends have said, my colleagues have. If there is a problem on the timeline, how the response, there should be a mechanism to respond to that for the small store. I believe there's a point to retain. There could be a situation that AFRINIC staff doesn't respond within the time frame, not because the member hasn't given all the details, I have experienced that really because the staff had a problem, and I contacted the staff, and we managed to find a solution. There are problems which exist, and there should be a mechanism there. If these mechanisms are not sufficient, we should have to reinforce them. The second point concerns 3.3, which has been raised, but I don't believe that should be settled within a policy. I would like to ask a question. Has it already happened that the AFRINIC staff asks this kind of information to members who apply for resources? Because up till now, from my personal experience, but it worries me if ever the staff asks that kind of question, and what kind of questions really are to call marketing, etc. We all know that some kinds of information should remain confidential. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan?
Hello, Alan Barrett. I've heard a few times stories from people who say that the application took very long to process, or the staff asked them questions they didn't want to answer. So maybe there really is a problem, I'm not sure. But even if there's a problem, I don't think the policy forum is the way to address it. I think there should be some other mechanism to enter into some sort of dispute resolution process if you're not happy with how the staff is processing an application.
Thank you, Alan. Before Lou, I'm going to close the floor in 3. So if you want to join the line, please do so now before the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. All right, so I'll take notes of the last person, and please don't bother joining the queue again. Thank you. Liu, you may continue.
Lohan, Cloud Innovation. I'd like to make a few comments here. The first one I like to make is about the timing. We just to for disclosure, my company in Europe, we're also member of the RAP-NCC, and we also had quite a long application process with RAP-NCC. However, it's still within a time frame of a month. And RAP-NCC, as Daniel just mentioned, they have an automated ticketing system which measures average responding time of their overall ticket. So in which, I guess if they take too long to respond, some or one of that ticket or some of that ticket will greatly delay such graph in which the performance is visible to the whole community, and I think this is actually a good mechanism to show the AFRINIC service quality to all the community members. And I hope that one of the staff can clarify if we might in the future adopt such mechanism, because there's simple mathematics here. You can request your new allocation when you reach 80% of utilization rate, and which means you only have 20% left, and you can only get 12 months of resources. So 2.4 months out of this 20% resource, if your allocation didn't finish in 2.4 months, your business is going to be affected, and your customer is going to be affected. You might losing customer experience, difficulty in your business because of the registry, and that is something we definitely don't want. So either by policy or by any other means to improve the overall service quality of the AFRINIC is an issue in front of the community, and I think it's in the interest of everybody here to address it. And there's one more point, just give me 10
seconds, right? Yeah, thank you.
10, yeah, okay. The second point about the information, I think most countries have privacy laws, and privacy law forbidden sharing information with customer data detail to street or down to street level, forbidden such action to a third party. And if AFRINIC require information which conflict with the local law which the member is representing there, I think that shouldn't happen. I have no problem AFRINIC checking every aspect of the business, but if it's conflict with law, it shouldn't be happening, right? So that's my two personal opinions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lou. I think I could cite the CEO. I think I would like him to later come and tell us how, whether they actually, how they treat information from customers.
It doesn't matter how they treat it. It's privacy law forbidden you share information to the third party. It's written in the laws in most countries.
Yeah, but if there is privacy, then why do you apply for the resource? Why do you need to apply if you have a concern and you think that the process that is existing does not go in line with your ethics?
Let's say if you're a local operator in one of the countries and you are serving 1,000 customers there, and you need 1,000 IP address for your 1,000 of your customers. And of course, you need IP address. You apply from AFRINIC. Then AFRINIC say they need all these customer names, but it's the law your country resident in saying you can't share their customer names to third-party organization.
Yeah, I understand you, Lou. My point is that every organization has its own process.
Mm-hmm.
So if AFRINIC says that this is its own process, and you say because your own process says that you should not give this information, I think the simple solution
I'm not saying my own process. I'm saying
your process is the law, right? Your own process is the law, says that you should not give that information. I think the simple thing.
The legal
anyway,
instrument, yes.
No problem, Liu. I think we'll resolve this. Don't worry.
I'm just making a comment here, please.
The comment is noted.
Okay.